Rate cuts are off the table for 2024. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Look, some people are saying that we don't know what's going to happen, but Jerome Powell mentioned something everybody should know. In fact, the markets reacted very negatively to it. And not only that, we had multiple individuals coming out there, high level people within the Fed and outside of it, saying, we got a problem here. Houston, we got a problem. Let me explain to you what's going on. I'll take you through what's happening in the economy. I'm going to look at the actual things that Jerome Powell did say. I'm going to relate that into what's happening throughout. Let me get into it right away, no time to waste. So you're seeing the economy, and according to the IMF, they inched up their expectations for global economic growth this year, citing strength in the US and some emerging markets. So hey, things are good, right? The US is good. We're going to have a fantastic GDP growth in the United States, according to the IMF. Good stuff, right? Well, there's an issue here because inflation is not going down as fast as they wanted to. And in fact, you can see here, Powell says inflation progress has stalled. Rates will hold steady for longer. This was definitely not in the Federal Reserve's playbook just a few months ago. They were saying cuts are coming. We are going to go for it. It's simply just a matter of waiting for that data to come through. We see that it is, but we're just going to wait a little bit longer. They didn't cut in March, and now you see what's going on. It is stalling, as they say. So there's more to it in here, and you need to understand right now that last year, rebounding supply supported U.S. growth in spending and also employment alongside considerable decline in inflation. The more recent data shows solid growth and continued strength in the labor market, but the lack of further progress, that's the term they always use, further progress, so far this year on returning to our 2% inflation goal. There's the comments I have seen many times about the Federal Reserve. They don't have a goal of 2%. Jerome Powell has made it clear several occasions there's a 2% inflation goal. It's also on the federalreserve.gov website. For a period of time during 2020, they didn't have that. But here it is, as of now, coming right from the horse's mouth. Okay, so it's 2% goal. I think, and I've said this before, that they'll change that they're going to say, well, sliding scale between 2 and 3% over, an extended period. They'll make something up. But as of now, 2% inflation goal. Keep that in mind, okay? We haven't gotten an admission from the Fed saying, okay, we're going to change that. So at this time, still 2%. They're not getting there, and it's being sticky. And this was an expectation, as I've talked about before, that it's just not going to go straight down. Some people are saying, oh, no, you got to worry about deflation. You got to worry about deflation because it's just going to keep going lower and lower and lower. You see deflation anywhere, you let me know. You give me a call, okay? You let me know. You can email me. Janet will forward those emails to me, okay? Janet Yellen, if you could find the Treasury Secretary's email, she'll just forward them over to me. So what you're seeing here is the reaction. The bond market, of course, did not like that. And as expected, it shouldn't. But you can see that, as they say here, it's not giving us greater confidence and instead indicated it's likely to take longer than expected to achieve that confidence. If higher inflation does persist, we can maintain the current level of restriction for as long as needed. So what does that mean? Okay, well, you got interest rates 5.25% to 5.5%. It's going to stay here for an extended period of time until they get that down. They're not talking about hiking rates. They're not talking about, doing any big change. But what they are saying here is that inflation isn't coming down to where we need it to be at this point. And it's looking like, it's not on its trajectory down. It didn't have to be at 2% for them to start cutting. It just had to kind of be heading in that direction. Clearly, it's not. Of course, you can't get it down in this way when everything is going up. Like, it's just, it's very difficult, even with all their manipulations, very difficult. What do you think inflation is around you? Put that number down below. Just put the number itself, and let's then go down and see what people are experiencing. 10%, 5%, 20%. You tell me what your year-over-year inflation rate, if you were to put a number on it, what would it be? Put that in the comments. I'm very interested to see, and I know all the others will be all scrolling through looking for it. Top U.S. central bank officials, including the Fed's Jerome Powell, backed away from providing any guidance on when interest rates may be cut, saying that, hey, we're going to have to be restrictive for longer. Okay, so that's part of the same information. You could see another quote. Right now, given the strength of the labor market and progress on inflation so far, it's appropriate to allow restrictive policy further time to work and let the data and let the evolving and let the data, oh my goodness, let the data and the evolving outlook guide us. Jerome Powell and his Fed speak always get me tongue-tied. So here we have it. You got this June 11 to 12 meeting, and then after that meeting, 2 p.m., we will get initially the statement comes out, and then at 2:30, he will come up for the press conference. What are we going to get? I don't know. I don't know anymore. It seemed very likely that there would be cuts then. It's still a while away, though. So let's see. We're going to get multiple reports out, inflation reports, jobs numbers, all these different things that will come between now and then. And we're going to have to see. This, of course, has an impact on the markets. Markets' fear signals are flashing red as stocks pull back from record highs. So we're looking at the VIX. This is an important one that's been subdued for the longest time, okay? Pushing further down and down and down. And stocks, as I've talked about with the my Financial Friday crew, we talk about this for 2 hours, okay? And when you see this, when you look at it, it's pretty obvious. The market was at a period of exuberance. It had moved up far too fast. It was going crazy. And I was telling them, I wish they could be here to give me a nod on this one. But what happened was I was saying it's just too high. And we haven't seen the Fed. The Fed has something called, it's part of the money mirror method. The reserves, they hadn't come up to that level. You might be confused at what this is. If you just search for the money mirror method, the money GPS, you'll get it. But basically, there are different ways to look at this, and we understand how the system works. It's based on liquidity and not on fundamentals. It's not based on, to some degree, it's based on speculation, but you got to understand it's based on liquidity overwhelmingly. And so that can't get ahead of itself, though. And it did. It did. It was due for even a little bit of a correction, just a breather at the very, minimal. It needed that. We're going to look at BlackRock, a couple things, actually. BlackRock's Larry Fink sees the Fed cutting rates twice this year, but missing the 2% inflation goal. So they're going to cut, but not get the 2%. Definitely, when you look at it. But there's all these guys out there on YouTube land saying, yeah, you got deflation coming. Like I said, you tell me where it is. I'll be there. It's not happening, okay? So what's next? What is it? Well, BlackRock, again, I wanted to touch on this. AI can't happen without huge investment in infrastructure. And it's true. There's a lot that needs to go into powering artificial intelligence. So here we have that. AI, important, but infrastructure. Funding the infrastructure. The nuclear power, all these data centers, all the components, raw materials that are put into all of this. Very important. And how does that get, that's public sector, right? A lot of it is going to be public sector potentially. And that government needs to fund it. All right. U.S. interest payments reach $1 trillion. $1 trillion. There have been some potential calculations that it will actually go beyond to $1.6 trillion by the end of the year. You can see the line is just straight up. Okay. The interest payments. The United States can't pay the bills. So it's doing so because, of course, it's the US, right? It can run deficits potentially, for the foreseeable future, no problem with that. But technically, mathematically, this is a disaster. And they're not alone. Canada's even worse in one, depending how you look at it. Other countries as well. So this is something that you need to understand. How are they going to fund it? How are they going to fund this expansion that they absolutely need to do because they don't want to get behind on AI? So you got to do that. You need more power. You need a lot more power. And if you want that lot more power, you got to build, you got to have the money invested. And that money is going to have to come from where? The taxpayer. Are you ready for that? Are you ready for an explosion in the amount that you pay in taxes? Oh, no. Let the rich guys pay for it, right? You know that's not how it works. Doesn't matter who you get in. Doesn't matter who you vote for. Your taxes in the middle class, you will be paying more, and a lot more. I foresee the biggest tax increases we have ever seen coming 5 years down the road. You look at that, you'll be paying much more. 10 years down the road, much more. It will only get worse, and then you're going to have services cut more and more and more. It is becoming very difficult for me to see any way around this. I am constantly trying to make these calculations and, put it through the data that I have, and it's very clear. I just want to show you this. These are the top 50 largest banks in the world by assets. Look at this. You've got your European banks, you've got your US banks. Number one, assets. You can call it what you want. Maybe some of them are not really good assets, but China by far is the largest. That's one thing. Then I'm showing you the 100 largest US banks by consolidated assets. And this is, the names you're used to seeing. There's exposure here. There's a lot of this, the reliance on everything that's been happening for the system to run as it is. Relying on things running smoothly and higher interest rates, although it's good for banks in some cases, generally not. There's less loans happening. Corporate banks are, the corporate side of things are getting just crushed. Commercial mortgage-backed securities, for instance, those are a big problem. We're seeing on the commercial side, they're not being able to pay that, right? For obvious reasons. Retail, office, looking terrible. Banks are exposed here. Who's going to be funding all of this? With businesses, with AI, with infrastructure and everything, there's a lot of money coming from these banks, from these financial establishments. You've got an issue here. So there's all these different moving parts, all these different connections, and a lot of failure points. So watch what happens with interest rates. If they don't come down fast, we have problems on our hands. It's going to affect AI. It's going to be connected with the infrastructure. And of course, what's happening, as I just explained. I hope you appreciate this information. Look, you got to do something. You've got to get a handle on your situation. Perhaps the place that you're living is the number one issue. You can't resolve it if you're basically being buried alive. That's the one thing. So you got to understand where you are positioned and your job, your personal circumstances. A lot of people are in positions where, they've been working in it for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, but maybe it's just looking grim. You're not getting paid the salary that you did before, factoring in inflation and everything. And sometimes we got to step out of our comfort zone and start making some other choices. All right? I appreciate you being here. Hit that thumbs up button. Check out Compass if you want to understand the truth. Financial education for free. totally for free. themoneygps.com. Click on the link for Compass, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.